This is the only channel that works over here. Channel 1 and 2 do not work. They won't produce any sound at all. Channels 3 through 4 does work. All the adjustments work. This is a old school Cole audio amp. I heard something rattling around in it. Never messed with it, never opened it up till now, but as you can see, this has come undone. Doesn't even look like it was ever soldered. But it goes right here. That's where that goes. But it wasn't even hooked up. It was just floating around inside the amp internally. But the rest of the board looks good. There's another item. I'm just going to leave those parts inside the amplifier. They're not hurting nothing else. Other than just bouncing around. But everything else internally looks good. Now that's not saying much. There's some rust around the FETs. Last time I checked, the amp did power on, but I haven't attempted that since I heard that rattling around. I'll put the amp back together and flip it over for you. Okay, amplifier is now back together. So I'll flip it over. I'm trying to be careful. Now this is old, because there's a power supply there. Old Cole Powerhouse amplifier. As you can tell, there are two different sets. You got the Allen screws and then you got the Phillips head screws in here. Like I said, the last time I tested it, the amp did work, except for when I heard that rattling around. I didn't hook it up since then. The fuse that was in the amp was still good. It's a 40 amp fuse. Now this amp is a big amp. It's hard to read. A little dusty. MD269 8LT 2400 watt max. MD sound. 2 ohm stable, 2 channel bridgeable. I have had this amp opened up. Amp does power on, lights up. I had disconnected this. All this is lights, LEDs for just lighting up the top of the amplifier. It doesn't really do anything for power. It plugs in right here. amp powers on, produces no sound output. Now, this here, I have it unplugged. Goes to the crossover, which seems to be fine. Everything checked out well on it. And minus that little bit right there, as you see, but it's actually pretty good. But now it's right there. This amp I had repaired one time before, but you can see right here, it kind of took a little bite. Gentleman I sold the amp to actually hooked the positive to the ground and the ground to the positive. You can see the burn marks down in here from what happened. He arced it. This section here is actually output to the speakers. Fuses, power remote, and ground in. Everything seemed to check out minus certain things in this corner over here, which you can see. But coming through, a lot of the resistors, everything looks pretty good up on this side. That's not to say there ain't a problem. These are all good. And there you see how these are burnt down here too. Only screw missing is the remote screw and one speaker, which you can see down inside. You can see that it's missing. This one is missing one screw, and that's missing one screw. It takes 3 40 amp fuses. And just to give you a general overview of how big it is, I'll get my tape measure. Going from the edge of the amp. It is 21 inches long. 10 inches wide. By 2 inches thick. And I still have a ton more amps to go through. Some of them are junk amps. This Rockford does work. One problem with it, the only problem with this amp, is the gain and bass knob right here. The gain is real sensitive. You can adjust it and you'll get it set, and it'll actually, well, you can see how it moves. I think the solder joint went bad on it, or it went bad. I have no idea. I never opened this amp, only for the simple fact that it does work. It's just something with the gains. And the crossover works. The high output did work. I don't have the connection for that. I'm not going to hook it up. I don't want to risk anything on it. Original 30 amp fuse, but all the screws are here. There's a little bit of a corrosion on this one because I dropped something on it a while back and it actually started to eat at it. It was probably some solvent from cleaning a subwoofer terminal, but as you see, it still turns. It would just need a little cleaning. Make sure these are wound in. And if you noticed, I have tape around this. That's because sometimes while I'm working on an amp, positive, sometimes you end up touching the metal here. It's constant. I do it because I don't run, I don't turn my system off to connect from power from one amp to another amp, so that protects me. This Kenwood CAC 5203 max power 350 watts. It's actually a nice amp, but it does not power on at all. I had an identical one I gave to a friend of mine for in his truck. And the gain is turned all the way to the minimum, but the amp does not power on at all, doesn't even light up. Power, ground, remote is hooked up. Two speaker screws are missing. The fuse is, I throw a 40 amp fuse in there, but it does not power on whatsoever. Could be the power supply, could be a bad FET. I've never opened this amp up either. Just show the model number again.